Set it up for Norton. The two tight ends blocking, and he finds a crease. 35-30 down the sideline. He may be gone.
All right, guys, welcome back. As you just saw, Cyclones come out of Waco with a massive Big 12 victory and another win for the Cyclones to make it 3 in a row for Matt Campbell and company. Iowa State goes on the road and wins against Baylor this weekend, 30-18. Welcome in to the Cyclone Fan Perspective by Play the Fight Song podcast. As always, I'm Jake. I bring you fan perspective recaps, previews for Iowa State as a part of our podcast at Play the Fight Song. Listen to our episodes. They drop once or twice a week, usually on Thursdays. We talk everything from college football. Well, the weekends that was, big plays, big news, and obviously we highlight big games going into each and every single week. This week, week 10, is going to be a massive one, not only for the Cyclones, but for college football in general. So make sure to tune in and listen to what we have to say about next weekend. Let's talk about Iowa State for a bit, but also I like to highlight the Big 12 scores, particularly right now, because your Cyclones are tied for first place in the Big 12, along with Oklahoma State, Texas, Kansas State, and Oklahoma, thanks to the Kansas Jayhawks for pulling off probably the biggest upset, not only in the conference this weekend, but the entire country, as they beat Oklahoma in Lawrence 38-33. I won't get into a ton of these teams and games this weekend because there's just not much to get into. Everything kind of happened the way it was supposed to. And for the Kansas game, we'll give you guys the rundown on them and our preview episode for Iowa State this week. But outside of that, Texas takes care of BYU and Malik Murphy's first start with Quinn Ewers out. They win at home 35-6. West Virginia goes on the road. They beat UCF 41-28. And it looks like Gus Malzahn is having tough sledding in his first year as a newcomer in the Big 12. And we thought maybe that was the team that was probably going to succeed the most out of the four newcomers. Not the case this year. Speaking of newcomers, Cincinnati goes on the road, and the season continues to struggle for them as they lose to Oklahoma State, who is playing red hot right now. 45-13 was your final for there in Stillwater. Iowa State obviously wins 30-18, and Kansas State takes care of another newcomer at home. They beat Houston. No question from start to finish. They win 41-0. So a lot of results this weekend weren't really surprising outside of that Kansas-Oklahoma game, but still some big wins for teams that have first place implications. And this race into November, as I can't believe we're rolling up on November already, is going to get red hot in this conference that never seems to disappoint year in and year out. And while we thought maybe Texas and Oklahoma were going to be the sure-on favorites to get to the title game, probably 4 weeks ago, it looks like another surprising under the radar team might creep its way into Dallas come December. So that being said, let's talk about Iowa State. They win to make it their third in a row. And while it wasn't their best performance, like any Iowa State fan, I think we're going to take a road win and we're going to take a double-digit road win. Somebody online actually gave us a nice little question, and this was the first time Matt Campbell has won back-to-back road games in the Big 12 since I believe it was 2019. And they had beaten Texas Tech, and I think it was West Virginia. So first of all, hats off to Matt Campbell and probably his best coaching performance in his tenure here. Now, I know a lot of people could argue he won a Fiesta Bowl and all that kind of stuff, but what he has done with the talent, the young group that he has, and the turnaround that he's had since that loss at Athens, Ohio in September has been nothing but remarkable. And I think the whole country deserves an apology. Iowa State fans deserve him an apology because I know I saw your guys' tweets. We read them all. I had my frustrations as well, and we have to give our coach the credit where it's due. So hence the black hat. I got to give a nod to him today because without him, none of this really would be possible, and the Cyclones wouldn't be in position to where they are now. Let's talk about the offense quick. Let's talk about the freshman quarterback, Rocco Becht, who probably had his worst game as a Cyclone, and that's not a slight. He just wasn't perfect, and not saying he's been perfect all year, but he's been really efficient today. He just missed some key throws. And he had a miscommunication, I think it was, with Jalen Noel. His one pick that he did have before the half, I think partially was his fault. But at the same time, I think that Jalen Noel might have ran the wrong route or cut it off shorter. So I don't think it was completely on him. But nonetheless, he probably shouldn't have made that throw. And then he had an intentional grounding inside the red zone that kind of put them back. So a couple of just weird throws out of him. But what does that say about this whole group in general when your quarterback, your freshman quarterback, misses a couple of opportunities to put points on the board and they turn it over a couple of times and you still win by double digits? Now, you heard me say in the preview that Baylor's not very good. If you guys ever are gonna continue to listen to my recaps or my preview episodes, I don't like to sugarcoat things on either side. And Baylor's a bad football team, man. And Dave Aranda, he's fighting for his job these last 4 weeks. I don't know if they're going to make a bowl game. I just recently heard their last 4 games are like BYU, Kansas State, I think Houston, and maybe Texas Tech or something. So they're really fighting for their lives, and Dave Aranda's fighting for a job. So we didn't necessarily beat the best team in the conference by any stretch, but Waco's obviously a tough place to play, and the weather played a big factor in this. I think it like rained, it downpoured, it seemed off and on, and that really left the crowd out of it. And Baylor didn't really bring much of a crowd, which probably was an advantage to Iowa State. So Rocco doesn't play perfect, but the run game really showed up once again. The offensive line continues to improve. I think that's a group you need to highlight. James Neal's getting better. Tyler Miller's getting really good. Boniface at the center position, while he's undersized for his position, I feel like he's really, really good, especially at what he does. And I'm never going to break down X's and O's, especially on the offensive line, because I know nothing about it. But I think I'm smart enough to know that I know when somebody's doing their job, and that's a group right now that is doing their job extremely well. And we haven't even really seen Jake Remsburg. Like, probably going into the year before the gambling situation was our best offensive lineman. And the group's playing well right now. So unfortunately, while I hate to see it, why would you put him in right now when a group is clicking like that? And that's a good thing to say. Like, I'm not trying to bad talk on anybody. Hopefully we don't, this group continues to thrive. This group continues to play well. Maybe Remsburg subs in here and there and to help out some of the depth things. But if he doesn't need to play right now, that's a good thing. That means this offense is clicking. And that led to a lot of good rush yards. Cartavius Norton in particular, shout out to him, had his best game of the year, maybe his best game as a Cyclone. When I watched him at TCU a couple of weeks ago at home, he just looked faster, man. And I think that's a guy who's fully healthy. And it really showed, as you guys saw in that first clip of the video today. He busted out that 30-yard, 45-yard run for a touchdown. He had another score today. He is an awesome, like, third down back. He's an awesome second option for Eli Sanders. Now, I said in that Cincinnati game, we have our number one back. It is Eli Sanders. He had 14 carries for 90 yards today. Awesome stuff by him. He continues to just put consistent yards together and consistent performances day in and day out, and that's led to this little winning streak as well. Abu Sama had 3 carries for 21 yards. But man, he had that fumble, and that's the one thing I respect about Matt Campbell. And as I've gotten older and have watched a lot of football, like, the really good coaches, the really hard coaches will not let you fumble on their football team. I think I listened to a podcast the other day that said, like, if you fumble for Bill Belichick, man, like, you will never sniff the field again. Now, I don't think Abu Sama is not going to not see the field for the rest of the year. He's too good to keep off the field, but it's a good learning experience for that freshman, man. He's going to be awesome. And it's kind of nice to see him learn from it and then look at, like, Eli Sanders as a veteran presence to kind of learn from that. And we can go to that, if he makes mistakes. So, learning experience for the guy. And that I just thought that was kind of funny. Turnovers, they can't happen. And running backs with fumbles and receivers when they drop the ball, like, that is 2 things I think as a coach, it'll drive them nuts and you'll get on their bad side really quickly if you do that on a consistent basis, because you just, especially when you play for a Matt Campbell team, can't make mistakes. It's a short turnover margin, and you play within the margins like he preaches, you're not going to get away with that. Let's talk about the receivers. Not a huge performance like from a massive group, but Jalen Noel, man, I was a guy who was kind of hard on him earlier in the year, and I want to give credit where credit is due. He's showed up consistently. He had an awesome third down, 10-yard out that kept the drive alive, I believe, to kind of put the nail in the coffin in the fourth quarter. And he makes catch after catch yesterday that we finally needed out of him as the leader of this offense, especially in that receiver room. Jaden Higgins had 5 catches for 74 yards. He had an awesome, like, little miniature Randy Moss play in the first quarter for a touchdown. And man, he was one overthrow by Rocco from like having 135 yards and 2 scores. That is your number one target. I think Rocco knows it. Matt Campbell knows it. Nate Shieldhouse knows it. They want to go to that guy when times get tough and they need to play because that kid can make it. So the stats might not show it today, but that kid easily could have had another 150-yard performance coming off the Cincinnati game, which I am so excited for him, and we'll get into that in the preview next week. He's got an awesome opportunity in front of Jack Trice Stadium on ESPN next Saturday. Ben Bramer, 3 catches for 69 yards. This guy is my favorite on the offense. Plain and simple. That's all I have to say about it. He's so long. He's fast for his position. He will be an NFL tight end one day. If he can even get a little stronger over the offseason, starts to run block a little better, this is a guy that I think has the potential to be better than a Charlie Kohler or Chase Allen. I'll say it. He's the only option right now. Those 3 had each other, Sainer, Kohler, Allen. They had each other. While I don't think the offense, like, he's got a good group with Klotz and like Dean surrounding him, especially in the run game. Bramer is the only receiving tight end position right now. Like, he's the only tight end we can go to in the passing game, and he continues to deliver game after game. That kid's a playmaker. He is awesome. The size that him and Higgins both present are a matchup nightmare for Big 12 secondaries. Lastly, let's go to the defense. I said it going into this game on Saturday. Let Blake Shapen throw 40 times, and we're going to be just fine. And that's exactly what happened. They rushed for 67 yards. Baylor rushed for 67 yards over the whole entire game on Saturday. And I'm going to pull it up here quick because I forget his name, because Reese was not a factor. Richardson, they tried to get him going. He couldn't get more than 2 yards a clip. So they went to that freshman, Pendergrass. Sorry. They went to Pendergrass. And surprisingly, he got like 4 or 5 yards a carry. That was kind of frustrating because I thought, man, I don't think that guy's a second option on any Big 12 team right now. But somehow that was the leading back for Baylor, and probably a good thing that they were going to him, honestly, because that team is really struggling to run the football right now. And really, outside of Monterey Baldwin, the receiving game, like I said, this secondary for Iowa State is too good. Baldwin and Jackson especially didn't really do much, but those guys weren't going to present any threat to TJ Tampa, Malik Verdone, Bo Freiler and company. Like, they had seen many good receivers before them, and that was not going to be a surprise. But Baldwin did get 6 catches for 117 yards, but they limited Jackson. So I'll take 1 for 2. I think Jackson actually got a little tentative when TJ Tampa had his interesting targeting call on him and kind of took him out of that game and got him a little happy feet. While I don't necessarily agree with the call, it's football. I mean, TJ just lit that guy up, and it's going to be called every single time, man, and in football in 2023, unfortunately. But lucky for him, he did it with 40 seconds left before the half, and he's going to be able to start on Saturday. So we'll take it for what it is. But that's what I want to give another shout out on the defense. Jamison Patton and Darian Porter stepping up in the second half when TJ got his ejection. Sorry. They played awesome. Like I said, Baldwin had, I think, 2 or 3 catches in the second half. He had most of his yards in the first, and they didn't miss a step, really. It seemed like when Tampa went out, they just continue to reload with this secondary. And honestly, I think you can put anybody at the cornerback position as long as you have Malik Verdone. That nothing is going to change. I have talked so highly how important he is for that defense. Again, he makes one of the best interceptions all year, a huge interception on a downfield throw by Chapin that could have led for something in the red zone, and he makes a hell of a play. So as long as I see number 7 in the back end for this defense, I really don't care. I would love to see TJ Tampa. I don't want TJ Tampa to get ejected ever again, but as long as Verdon's out there, I think he's the most crucial part of the defense. Carson Willis, Jack Sadowski, and Jake McLaughlin, 3 guys at the linebacker position, man, that had 13 total tackles, 2 tackles for loss. They are really tackling well and better in open space. They let that Pendergrass kid get a couple of big runs out of it, but I thought they tackled Richardson really well. I thought they kept the receivers underneath, and they held Reese as well. And they got after Chapin a little bit. Like Tyler Onyedem had another big sack. Joey Peterson played great again. But those 3, especially at the linebacker position, are really stepping into their own, and 3 really young guys. And they're all getting mentored by the grandfather in Gary Vaughn. So if they can continue to follow his leadership, I think that those 3 are going to have a really long and successful career for John Haycock's defense. That's all I really have for this game. I thought special teams wise, Chase Contreras goes 3 for 3, man. If you have his kicker as rock solid as he is all year, Iowa State's gonna win these close games. So if you would have told me that Iowa State would have won by 12 on the road with 2 touchdown overthrows by Rocco Beck, a pick by Rocco that led to a Baylor score before the half, and Abu Sama fumble in Baylor territory, and it was downpouring in Waco pretty much the entire time, I wouldn't have believed you. There was no way I thought this team would have won in a situation like that for as young as they are. And Iowa State fans, you can relate with me. You know that you've seen games blown like that. And hey, that was a team in Baylor that had a 30-point comeback in the fourth quarter on UCF. So it was definitely capable, and Iowa State slammed the door on them. There was never a doubt. And that's where I think this team is different this year. If you can go on the road and make a couple of mistakes and still not even feel threatened really at all, how good is this team? Again, first place, tied for first place in the Big 12, a huge 4-game slate. You are playing meaningful November football games, and I'm excited, man. This is an awesome opportunity, and Iowa State plays Kansas at 6:00 ESPN Saturday night, and I couldn't think of a better opportunity for this young group to really put themselves on the map going into the later half of November and possibly somehow competing for a chance to get to Dallas. So that's all I got today. Make sure to tune in. We'll preview Kansas later in the week, cover more of their huge upset over Oklahoma. We'll cover how Iowa State's going to win. I think it's a huge opportunity. I think Iowa State can take advantage of. And as always, follow us on socials, subscribe to the YouTube channel, follow us on TikTok at Play the Fight Pod. Follow us on Instagram, X, wherever you get your social media and all your college football news. We're everywhere on there. And make sure to tune in this Thursday as we will cover the entire Week 10 slate that is loaded with LSU, Alabama, Clemson, Notre Dame, huge Big 12 games, the last Bedlam series we'll probably see for a while, and so much more. So make sure you tune in this week. And as always, Cyclone fans, enjoy the win, enjoy the win streak, have a great week. And as always, you know what it is. Go Cyclones.